Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to stand here. I think if they used BIM designing this building, we wouldn't have this column probably. Although I'm sure everyone has made that joke at this event. So I'm going to just walk around and then probably go a little bit lower, and then I may go to the back if that's okay to bring them in. All right, so I have about 25 minutes with you, and I want to give it a little bit of a different spin here. I'm sure you have had an overload of terminology and acronyms, BIM just being one of them, but you have spoken about fast elevators and smart grid and smart buildings. I'm sure the word app has come up quite a lot of times. Data, I assume, has been kind of woven through every presentation. But in reality, who really cares? So who cares? Nobody here even, look. You care, I hope we care. So who here is an architect or works for an architectural firm? 2, 3 only. Builders, contractors. Oh, okay, look at that, quite a bit. Maybe vendors, suppliers, just a few. So, of course you care, based on the job that you have and the work that you do. But why should we really care? I'll tell you why I care. And that's my kids. I care because we're thinking about buildings of the future, cities of the future. Who are we really building them for? It's for our next generations. And these are my children, 14 years old and 10 years old. They don't talk geek speak like we do about blockchain and apps. They just assume it's there and they assume it works. And they have a whole set of different expectations about the world that they are living in and will be living in. Probably many of us do. And what they represent is quite shocking. Maybe not shocking, it's a reality. Millennials today are the biggest generation in our workforce. Who's here a millennial? Do you know what millennials age? Yeah, a handful of them. Not that many. 20% of Canadian workforce is about to retire in the next 5 years. The first cohort of centennials, those are like 18, 19, 20-year-olds, are now entering the workforce. That's probably people that you are hiring, hopefully from our college. But this is the world and the workforce and the population that we have to build our future buildings, to build our future cities, but more importantly, this is the generation for which we are building. Now, you've heard about a lot of changes that are happening throughout today. Demographics just being one of them. There's economic shifts and social shifts, lots of environmental stories, although we seem to talk a little bit less about that, but there's still lots going on. And then, of course, the technological shifts. And I know that has been a common theme throughout today. So I look at the technology shifts through two lenses. First one are digital capabilities that are foundational, that may be new to some of us, but certainly not to our children. These are table stakes. Things like mobile technologies and mobile access. 90% of all internet traffic is today consumed over mobile devices. Or video. 70% of all internet traffic is generated through video messaging, and not just YouTube or Skype, but increasingly so also how we work as businesses and communicate with one another. I think today I've spoken about the Internet of Things, the notion that billions of smart devices are becoming connected devices and intelligent devices that now can offer up their data that historically was either proprietary or locked up, and we can do very interesting things with them. For it, we're going to need networks. Does anybody notice if the Wi-Fi is down? It's the first thing we notice, right? We're expecting that this works. And then security, something we don't want to talk about, but we're going to assume that that's taken care of. Now, on top of this, we're going to see the transformational technologies that are going to shake every industry at its core as we know it. From autonomous vehicles to AI, to blockchain, robotics and robots, virtual reality, augmented reality. And if we would meet again a year or 2 years from now, there's probably new technologies that will come that are going to have a transformational impact on everything that we do. And they come at us at an incredible speed. And it becomes hard for us to be ready for them, to absorb them, to embed them in our business models. But if we don't, we're going to be left behind. And Jack Welch once said, If the rate of change, because of this, on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. So if we as an industry watch other industries and the consumer sector move forward really fast, adopting and embracing new technologies and introducing new ways of doing business, and we are not, we're going to be left behind and eventually cannibalized by innovative businesses in the digital economy. So I want to briefly talk about what does this mean to industries. And although I may talk about different industries, I hope you draw conclusions from this, what this means to your industry, and eventually maybe your job. So we're seeing, obviously, the emergence of the digital economy. New companies that have come to existence in the last 10, 15 years. Most of them certainly after the internet came. But each and every one of these companies have challenged an existing business model and have and are cannibalizing industries and companies as we may know them, from Amazon and the bookstore to Uber, Lyft and the taxi debate. The list goes on and on. So the question would be, who's going to be our Uber? Who's going to be our Amazon that may have an impact on our industry and the businesses in our sector? And I know we like to think construction and architecture pretty safe, but you could also say we're the last ones to move, the last ones to embrace some of this innovation to truly transform the possibilities in front of us. And it's not just the tech companies that are really showing that digital business transformation is essential. It's existing businesses that some of them have been in existence for over 100 years that they know that if they don't transform and look at this digital economy as a way to move beyond and differentiate and become more relevant, that they may be out of business, that they may be the next Blockbuster or Kodak. So Barrick Gold, for example, Toronto-based, Toronto-headquartered business, a mining company. All its mines are at least 24-hour flights away, middle of nowhere. They send people back and forth. It costs a fortune to operate those mines. They're exploring on how digital technologies allow them to operate, secure, and completely run a mine personless, people-less, through robotics, virtual reality, through like in a Toronto office with a joystick, drones, anything you can think that they imagine a mine eventually be operated without any people there. This has a huge impact, obviously, on jobs, but also on their business model. And they're in the midst of this transformation. Or Ford, 113 or 40-year-old automotive company that's been in business for a long time. Their biggest investments now aren't in automotive. Their latest, biggest investment was in Lyft. They have opened up an innovation center in Silicon Valley where all the IT companies are, and they're looking at the future of mobility and autonomous as game changers that is going to disrupt their own business models. Same with John Deere. Been in business for well over 100 years. They do not send out any agricultural equipment anymore that is not lit up with IoT devices, with sensors and capabilities that allow them to do precision agriculture. And as a result, we've seen the performance or the productivity take place in the agriculture space. But this is a great example because we always think, oh, all this technology, we're going to have everybody without a job and then robots will take over. If you think about agriculture, does anybody know that 150 years ago, what percentage of Ontario employment was related to agriculture 150 years ago? Yeah, 90. Almost 90% of everybody working in Ontario 150 years ago had an agricultural connection. Today, 3. That doesn't mean that everyone is without a job. New industries came, new opportunities came, and if we look at the digital economy, it's only going to be more pronounced. New companies, new businesses, new opportunities, yes, maybe at the expense of jobs and industries as we know them, but this is a journey that is not new to us. It may just be accelerated because of the digital economy. And then Oxford Properties in the real estate company, and I think you had Bill McGowan here this morning, and I suspect he spoke about the building he works in, which is Water Park Place, that took the Internet of Things pretty far in its facility, where everything from light fixtures to thermostats to HVAC controllers are connected to a digital infrastructure. So this is happening in every industry, and my suspicion is in your business, you have, or maybe should have, a digital transformation officer to start to think about how you run your operation to stay current. Now, how about the cities? Because we all work and live in cities one way or another, and you just saw the presentation from Lucia. Lots of innovation happening in cities, from signage to mobility to Wi-Fi to security, maybe a bad thing, maybe a good thing, but it's not just the cameras for security, it's the analytics that we can now extract from this and maybe address traffic congestion or other municipal challenges. To smart buildings, obviously, and we talked about it, to urban mobility. It's the town of Innisville, not so far from here, that had 2 years ago decided we're not going to invest in buses and traditional transit anymore. We're going to do a partnership with Uber to deliver urban mobility services to every citizen, and it actually is going to be cheaper with a much higher personalization rate than bus infrastructure, transit infrastructure could do. So it could have a opportunity to transform how we think about our cities. Or Dan Rozengater, Dutch designer, who's starting to think about how we, for instance, use different kinds of paint or sensors in roads that may light up depending on the weather or the climate, if it's snowing, and enhance safety and an urban experience. He also invented this. Does anybody know what this is? It's a ring, of course. It's carbon, and what happens if you squeeze carbon really, really hard? You get a diamond. So what he has done is invented a machine that sucks the carbon out of the air and actually turns it into diamonds, and you're testing it in Asia. So not long from now, we're going to have artful machines in our parks taking the carbon out of our air and then turning this into diamonds that he's using to fund the machines that he's building. So it has to do with sustainability, but eventually it's going to have quite an impact how we think about our cities. And then this came from Siemens, Lucia, the whole notion of the digital twin, that every city and every building and every piece of infrastructure will have a digital twin, a digital model, so we can start to control and monitor and optimize the performance of everything we do in our cities. Now, none of this is a pipe dream. This is happening. This is happening around the world, and it's happening in our backyard. The city of Mississauga has been investing heavily in smart city solutions, and they realized in order for us to be productive, we need to create the foundation, the plumbing, if you will, to make smart city work. And you heard Lucia speak. It's about getting the data out of all the things that are going to and need to be connected. So they've been investing in a digital infrastructure, on top of which now they're rolling out digital media services, public transit services, and they can use and reuse this infrastructure to start to modernize and optimize every service that they deliver to their citizens. Or Dubai, and I think this morning we spoke about blockchain. By 2020, they claim that they will deliver all their citizen services through blockchain technology. Faster, cheaper, more secure, and possibly with a lot less people than they have today. So again, an implication on jobs. Now, it's not always the big cities like Toronto, Mississauga, or Dubai. It's the town of Berwick. I believe it's 1,800 people in Nova Scotia somewhere. And they realized if we don't do something, the next generation is not going to stay here. They're going to move to a city and they're going to disappear. And we're going to not be a town anymore 20 or 30 years from now. So they too thought of a digital infrastructure, or a fourth utility almost, to provide connectivity to a point where as a startup or a small entrepreneur, you can now run a global business out of a town in Nova Scotia and be a productive participant in a global economy. You don't really need to be in a big city anymore. And while they build that infrastructure, they lit up their city hall, which is tiny, of course, but they now start to control all their building automation system, their security, all through the convenience of, you guess it, an app. And then Washington, D.C. I like to put it there because it's funny to say smart city with the government that's in it, but They're making huge investments to be the greenest and smartest city, and there too, it's infrastructure-centric, starting that the plumbing and the foundation is in place so they can roll out, frankly, any application, any service that is thinkable. So what do they all have in common? Barrick Gold, or Oxford Properties, or Mississauga, or whomever, they all recognize that the only way to advance and to innovate is to embrace the digital world, and not for the sake of anything else, but to access, to monetize, to capitalize, and leverage the data that we have, that's on us, that sits on us, that sits in things. So how do we connect people with processes, with data, and with things to create a platform that allows us to constantly innovate? And it's this innovation culture, this innovation spirit that any and all of these businesses and communities are embracing in order to leapfrog ahead. And we as an industry have a huge role to play in shaping that. And my concern is that if we don't own that opportunity, that Google will swoop in, or Microsoft, or somewhere else, or Siemens, sorry, Alicia, and try to own this, while historically, we as master builders, right, the community that has built cities and buildings for thousands of years has owned that conversation, that narrative. And I think we need to do that again, because we are data organizations, and BIM is just a tool, a great tool, to really take advantage and monetize and expand the opportunities that can come out of data. Now, all this is, again, companies, cities, big picture. What does this mean to us? And what does this mean to my kids that I showed you earlier? My 15-year-old is asking me now what classes he needs to take so he can get a good job. And I actually don't even know what to advise him. And I work for a post-secondary education institution, because what do the jobs look like by 2030 in this world? So here is doctors. When you think about doing surgery and standing over a patient, that will be history soon. There's a room, Toronto, high fancy tower, and maybe 50 doctors sitting like this, performing surgery, microsurgery on patients 3,000 miles away. So now I don't need to be a doctor anymore and be in a hospital. I can be basically sitting in any office and help patients around the world. How about cooking? Cooking robots. You teach this robot how to prepare a meal. Soon you can download a Gordon Ramsay recipe, and the robot will prepare your cooking and do the dishes. Now, maybe that nobody complains about. But if you want to be a chef or work in the culinary arts business, this could be very disruptive. Number one job in the Midwest in the United States, truck driver. It's pretty disruptive what's coming that way. Quite shocking. Autonomous vehicles or autonomous delivery. There's been a pilot by Domino's Pizza in the UK. And in our industry, it's not any different. Virtual reality, augmented reality, completely starting to change the way we think about construction and giving us access to data and insights and analytics on the spot, when we need it, where we need it, to make smarter and faster decisions. All the way to the possibilities of 3D printing and designing something in BIM, printing it straight from there, and then using BIM for facilities management and creating kind of a circular economy in real estate, if we think about what the future of construction and real estate could be. Now this, in my mind, is the real challenge. Smart cities, smart buildings, technologies will come and it will innovate, and we will get all this. The technology is the easy part. But making sure that we and our staff and our future employers are ready to embrace these technologies and have the skills to take advantage of everything that's coming at us with this raging speed in order to be productive and in order to remain relevant, that to me is, I think, what probably should scare all of you the most. That maybe didn't sound nice. Don't be scared. There's always George Brown College to help you. Yes, I said it. 42% of the workforce is at high risk of being affected by automation in the next 10 years. This is in Canada. And this is not us saying it or some IT vendor or supplier. This is the Brookfield Institute. I'm going to round this up so I can say it again with more dramatic impact. Half of all the workforce is going to have the ability to be high impacted by automation in the next 10 years. So you know how they do in college. Look left and right of you. So half of your jobs are going to be impacted. This is a big, big deal. And mind you, I've been around long enough that I know that when the PC came out, we said, oh, we'll never print again. And I think we've never seen more printing and paper. So I'm not suggesting that we'll be out of jobs, but we're going to have to figure out how to work with automation, with robots, to be productive in this new world. On the upside of this is that 85% of jobs that we're going to need by 2030 have not been invented yet. 85% of jobs. And obviously, as an educator, this is very exciting because we're trying to educate the next generation for jobs that we don't even know what they are. You're trying to figure out what your business will look like, what you need to hire for, the talents and skills that you need to develop your staff for, knowing that what you're going to need in the future is going to look very, very different. So it doesn't stop after you get your diploma. This becomes now a lifelong learning journey that we only can master if we work together as academic institutions and as industry, taking advantage of digital technologies, try to stay ahead. So this is an opportunity for you guys, for us at George Brown, or post-secondary education, frankly for all of us, particularly in industry, and I'm going to say it, and you may boo me away, but that has a history of slow adoption of innovation and technology. And I think we have an opportunity to start to leapfrog, frankly, many other industries by embracing what is in front of us and readily available. So we talk about all this data and technology that's really going to drive what any industry, what any job will look like of the future. And here comes our role. This is for those of you that have small kids, the Lego movie, the master builder. This is the master builder. This is us. And I think if we think back thousands of years ago, the role of the master builder on designing and defining and overseeing what the future of cities and buildings would look like, that's our opportunity to shape tomorrow's digital world that goes well beyond bricks and mortar. And I think the opportunity for digital design technologies is there to really expand and extend our reach and our relevance. So we need to be leaders in this, not followers. We have an opportunity to drive not only the construction or the AEC, the real estate industry forward, but to really show city builders, and we talked about all the things that impacts, what the future of our communities could look like if we think about data and design and information management in a different way. And that only works if we know how to collaborate. Nobody can do this alone. This is not an IT company that can come in and say how we're going to go this way. This is all of you working together with education institutions, with the tech sector. This is about creating new collaborative ecosystems that can really de-risk, if you will, the opportunities that technology is bringing, but also as a result, lead the way. And then the last is that in addition to leading it and collaborating, we need to embrace innovative digital design technologies. And BIM is just one piece of that, but thinking about everything that we have at the tip of our fingers to reimagine our jobs, to build future infrastructure, our buildings and our cities, I think that's where our opportunities, and I think that's where a lot of the vendors in the back probably want to help you play a bigger role. So I mentioned, technology is just a means to an end. It's actually the easy part. In your organization or the projects that you work on, to instill a culture of innovation, a culture of trying things, and it's okay to fail, and a culture of pushing your business and an industry forward is going to be key, and that is going to require a strategy. This cannot just be haphazard and shiny object chasing for like this is a cool gadget today. This is about creating a purposeful journey on how we can collaborate together to deliver future state communities. And then there's, of course, our responsibility, and that's how do we make sure through education and research we help you lead that path. So how do we work together through preparing our next generation workforce to look at your existing workforce and think about professional development and giving them the skills, the hard and the soft skills, to really be ready for this, to not take only the benefits and examples of BIM, but for all design, innovative design technologies, that we can truly, I think together, shake up an industry and shake up a world and design incredible communities that I know my kids will want to live in. So I'm leaving you with the thought, if you think that you are ready, your company is ready, if your business and industry is ready, and to realize, though, that the only way to be ready and to make this successful and make this a win-win is if we work very well together. So thank you very much. I want to make sure that you know that as a sponsor of this event at George Brown, we are very invested, not only in BIM, but in innovative design technologies and in skill building and thinking about future employment. So please feel free to reach out to myself or any of my colleagues that are sitting here in the room, if we can help you on your journey, trying these things through maybe applied research or through education, because only when we do this, I think, as education and as industry together, we can really start to lead the way. Thank you very much.